Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more of the Trial of the Grasses seasonal events, which is an alternate game mode in which whenever a unit enters the board, it gets damaged by 2, then boosted by 4, unless it's a Witcher, in which case it only gets boosted by 4, and that means this event is all about the Witchers, or countering the Witchers, which is exactly what we're going to do today. So let's go take a look at the deck. So today we'll be playing a Nilfgaard Imposter deck that is all about countering the Skellige Bear School Witcher meta, which we used for our previous deck, but in case you're not familiar, it largely is built around the Bear Witcher Quartermaster, which is arguably the strongest card in this entire event, because not only is it a Witcher itself, but it also spawns in additional Witcher students, which are worth a ton of points in this event. So that means we'll still use all the big Witchers like Geralt Yrden to reset a row because there are tons of boosts in this event. Swordmaster to damage all those Witcher students because there is a very high probability that our opponent will stack up on a ton of those. Geralt of Rivia for tall removal, Geralt Igni for even more removal, and Geralt Quen to help tutor in one of those cards. Then we also have the Wolf School Trio for a solid point slam, and we have Leo for a huge point slam near the end of the round when we have a bunch of Witchers on the board, and Eyck for even more removal. But then we go into the specifics for Nilfgaard with things like the Duchess Informant, which can of course create a copy of one of those Bear Witcher Quartermasters, and that gives us another way to get one of the strongest cards in the event, even if we aren't playing as Skellige. Similarly, if our opponent has ideally numerous Quartermasters on the board, we can use Obsidian Mirror to create additional copies of it on our side, up to 3, which is amazing because, sure, they may just be 1-power copies of those units, but because those are Witchers, they'll immediately get boosted by 4, turning them into 5 points apiece, so it's at least 15 points. And then, once you factor in the order abilities, which spawn in even more Witcher students, then this could add up to on the order of about 64 points from a single 4 provision cost card, which is just absurd. And if your opponent doesn't have 3 Quartermasters on the board, then you can use other Witchers, like the Witcher students even, as your targets. Then, in round 2 or round 3, once our opponent has some of those Quartermasters in their graveyard, we can use Experimental Remedy to play it from their graveyard onto the board, which will also prevent them from using Freya's Blessing, which would be a way they'd like to play that Quartermaster from their graveyard on their side of the board. Similarly, the Illusionist is another way to get one of those Quartermasters on our side of the board when our opponent has one of them in their graveyard. Then, also unique to Nilfgaard, we have Cahir, who, because basically every card that our opponent plays is going to get boosted, Cahir will get a ton of boosts in this event, and so it's a way of almost completely counteracting much of the benefits that our opponent is going to get. Just make sure that, ideally, you're putting him with your defender in the same row to protect him. And we also have a standard bearer, which is sort of like a budget mini version of Leo, because since our opponent is going to have a whole bunch of boosted units, that's going to turn this into a big finisher as well. Then lastly, of course, we have our leader ability, which we can use to ideally lock one of those Quartermasters, and if our opponent, for whatever reason, hasn't used their order abilities yet, then we can deny them that additional pointage. But obviously, getting Quartermasters on our side of the board is always great, and if our opponent has already made a bunch of those Witcher students, those all have statuses, because they have Doomed, which means whatever unit we target with Imposter is going to get a big boost. So there's a look at the deck, and like I said, it is all about countering the Skellige Bear School Witcher meta, which is extremely common in this event, so it is very likely that you will get the matchup that you're looking for. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against Skellige here, and they'll go first. Okay, so we have Cahir, which combined with our defender gives us a great way to counter all their boosting. We have one of the Wolf School Trio, we have a few Geralts to shut down some of their biggest cards. We actually don't have a ton of direct counters here, or at least the ones that we do have, Experimental Remedy and Illusionist, require that they have their key cards in their graveyard, which is not really going to be the case in round 1, so I think we're probably looking to swap these two out. Obsidian Mirror, as long as they get a lot of those Quartermasters out there, could be amazing. Then let's dump you. And Duchess Informant is another way to counter the Quartermasters. Okay, so this is looking like a more well-rounded hand in this case. And there is a Quartermaster. Perfect. We like them to play them early, because otherwise it can start to get a little bit awkward if we're forced to do things like play a Duchess Informant on something other than a Quartermaster. But we could go right off the bat and do that now. Although I think it might make sense for us to go Nauzicaa Sergeant first, and that gives them a little more time to ideally play even more Quartermasters so that we can create even more of them with Obsidian Mirror, and or have a target for us to damage with its order ability as soon as we get one with the Duchess's Informant. So let's go this first. And of course, the earlier that we play the Nauzicaa Sergeant, the more value it will get. Okay, Megascope, so another source of the Bane Witcher Quartermasters. That is great, but it's going to take them a little bit of time for this to proc, and so again, we'd like to wait, ideally, until we can get 3 Quartermasters with the Obsidian Mirror. That would be amazing. So we'd love for them to play even more Quartermasters on their next turn. But we could go Duchess's Informant and create our first Quartermaster now, and then we do have a target to damage. So that's an option. We do also have the Moorlehem Hunter. Obviously, they put the Veil on this one, so we're not about to lock it. We could try to lock the one they get out here, but yeah, actually, that might work well. So I think we go here. We will make our Quartermaster, or at least our first one. And then I think we will hit you right off the bat. Of course, when we get a Quartermaster, it starts off with 1 armor, so that is, in some ways, your preferred target, at least for your first order ability, but just in case they have lock, we'll make sure we use those order abilities right off the bat. Armor up. Okay. So this is the kind of situation you could potentially find yourself in. They'll use their order ability once they have armored units to target. There's their second Quartermaster, where you might have an opponent with 1, possibly 2 Quartermasters, but you'll definitely see a lot of the Witcher students out here. And so Obsidian Mirror on this occasion would mean, okay, we can get 2 Quartermasters, then we're creating the 3rd unit as a Witcher student, which is still okay, because it's a Witcher, so it's going to turn into a 5-point unit rather than a 1-point unit. So it's something, but it's not quite as good as what we would otherwise get. So I think we still wait 1 more turn before we do this, and now we will get some value out of it in Moorlehem Hunter, because we can lock that Quartermaster, deny them a fair bit of points. Okay, so yes, if we can wait long enough before using Obsidian Mirror, we could get triple Quartermastered with this, which would be amazing. The problem is we need to play 1 more card on this turn before we do any of that stuff, and we can start to find ourselves in a situation where Leo is not ideal. We'd like to have more Witchers down there first. If we were playing Leo after doing all of our Quartermaster stuff, that'd be amazing. Geralt, I mean, could get rid of this Quartermaster. It's an option. Obviously, it's already used its order ability, so it's not amazing. We're talking about trying to save Obsidian Mirror. We'd like to save Ffion plus Cahir at this point. That's probably a round 3 combo. It's too early for the Adrenaline 4 on this Lambert, and we'd probably like to save Yrden as well. So I think that means it's certainly not a perfect Geralt, but it is a 12-point unit that we're removing here. So, oop, not you. You. So we'll take you out. So that's a situation you can find yourself in. Either you're going to have to compromise a bit on the Obsidian Mirror, getting a not perfect setup, or you're going to have to play a card a little bit earlier than you would ideally play it, bricking your Adrenaline cards, which obviously is not ideal, or in this case, playing a removal card when there isn't a perfect target to remove. But this is why we did it, because this is the ideal circumstance where we find ourselves... Oh, did they just... Wait, hold on. What? What did you do to the other Quartermaster? We had such big plans for that. Excuse me. It would have been perfect if they had kept that Quartermaster on the board, but did they destroy it with all their Quartermaster self-damage? I didn't even catch how they removed it. What? How dare you? We had all those plans. Okay, I mean, we'll settle for... As I said, Witcher Student as the 3rd target. And so now, with all these armored cards, we can hit you like so. And then the last one, I mean, try to avoid Igni, which isn't a huge problem, because we have 1 card that is clearly the highest in all of our rows, and not going to get multiple cards removed. But there you see, that was a huge turn, and it would have been even bigger if we had the chance to use another Quartermaster there. And you could have even made the case for using our leader ability there on that Quartermaster, denying the order ability, and... Oh, right, the Quartermaster we destroyed with Geralt. Right. That's why it wasn't there. Duh. We did it to ourselves. Okay, admittedly, should have seen that one coming. But, again, just a situation in which you find yourself oftentimes where you don't quite have enough mid-rangey cards. If you're trying to optimize everything, you're going to have to compromise somewhere. So at this point, though, we do have Adrenaline 4, so we could use Lambert. We could play Leo, because we have a lot more Witchers on the board now, so that's not bad. As I was saying, we could have theoretically used our Imposter ability, because there are so many cards with Doomed in all of these rows that would make for a really big Quartermaster. Granted, our rows are pretty full at the moment, so that's probably not what we're looking to do, and we would have preferred to have done it before they used their order abilities. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That means we have just enough room to get all of our Wolf School Trio members on the board there. So I think we'll go with that, and it is enough for us to retake the lead. And then we do have Leo as our finisher. It means we definitely don't have room for Cahir or Ffion. Or, well, I mean, we could play Ffion in the range row, but he's there to protect our Cahir. Okay, so is this... Oh, I was expecting for this to be their Leo. Okay, let's do some quick math here. Is Leo enough? If so, then we'll play him. If not, then we'll pass here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Witchers. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So you're getting plus 14. Your base power means you're an 18. Then from Trial of the Grasses, you'll get plus 4, so you're 22, which is enough. So I think we do that. Obviously, Leo is a big card, but I think if it means we're winning round 1, then it's worth it. And they have one spot remaining on their rows here, so they could potentially Yrden us. Okay, apparently that's 1. My math was 1 point off, but we still take the lead here. So yeah, they can potentially pass us with a Yrden or with Leo of their own. If they play Leo, we can Yrden and win this round. If we're interested, it is Leo. Okay, so that is the question then. That is the question then. Is it worth Yrdening now to win round 1, or do we want to save that for round 2/3? Because obviously that's a huge card in this event. They, at this point, if we are to play anything further, they very much cannot counter us because they're out of space. So, I mean, they might have a special card like Spores, but I kind of doubt it. So, I think it's worth it because Ffion plus Cahir is big. We know that they probably still have a Yrden of their own, which is a bit scary. Actually, do we have other forms of removal remaining? We do have Igni still, and we do have Eyck. It's probably still not as good as a Yrden, but we'll go for it. It is a bit of a risk, for sure, because it means we have already spent our Yrden, whereas they have not. So that could give them a big advantage in round 2/3, but we'll take our chances here and take the round 1 win. Okay, and so they do have all those Quartermasters in their graveyard, so the Illusionist does now make sense to get one of these out. So that's not a bad option. Not a huge fan of Red Haze. I think we dump that. Duchess' Informant, if they play a Quartermaster, is another way to get one on our side of the board, which they... I mean, there's a decent chance they'll do something like Freya's Blessing at some point. Lacerate, we went a little bit long in that previous round, right? I mean, they are still likely to go wide to a certain extent, but I'm actually a little bit tempted to push here. Go Ffion plus Cahir and just that in this round. And, oh, we won uneven as well. Actually, that might change that equation. Okay. Okay. The reason why I'm tempted to do that, even if we won round 1 and could potentially get card advantage plus double last say in round 3, is, like I was saying before, the fact that we have used Yrden and they have not is actually a very big deal. So, if we can force them to commit some really big cards here in a round 2 bleed, then that would be great. Obviously, Ffion plus Cahir is our most powerful combo at this stage. It's just that it is a blatantly obvious use Yrden here sign. And so, if we can bait them into using Yrden in round 2, then maybe that gives us the advantage we need in round 3. So, it's really risky, but I'm going to give it a shot. And I'm guessing that they probably did not anticipate that we were going to go this route. They're going with Portal, which, yeah, not so surprisingly is going to get them the Bear Witcher Depths. I'm not a huge fan of this card in this event because of the self-damage. It basically just cancels out the boost from Trial of the Grasses, turning it into a 7-point card, which is not a huge deal in this event. But if you get out with the Portal and avoid the self-damage, then it does become decent. But here's where we put down Cahir. And this makes matters really difficult for them because they can continue to play additional Witchers, but if they do, we're going to get boosted every time they do that. And that means that really the best way to answer is a Yrden. So sure, you can go Wolf School Trio That's a lot of boost that we acquire. You do pass us, because that is still a fair bit of base power, which is the one other sort of workaround for Cahir. But we do still have some options here. Duchess's Informant is not really ideal when they don't have one of those Quartermasters on the board. We could use it on the Bear Witcher Adept, but that's definitely not great. Whereas Illusionist, I think, is definitely what we're looking for. So if we go this route, and let's just not row stack to no end here. Let's go this row, and then we do have a unit with armor, so we'll go after Ffion, so he can tank the hit, and get some Witcher students down here for additional points. Just continue to put the pressure on them, and try to force them into committing something big. So there's a Freya's Blessing, which is actually great, because that means we can now use Duchess's Informant. And again, every Witcher that they create, we're absorbing power with Cahir. Even after the other Adept gets summoned in from Portal, we still are holding on to a 1-point lead here. So we could pass, force them to play another card, and that would mean that we'd have that card advantage, double last say in round 3, but we could have done that if we had just dry passed in this round. So have we really achieved anything at this stage, or are we trying to push the issue just a little bit further? I feel like we are. So I think we go Duchess's Informant here, steal a Quartermaster, that will be worth a lot of points, and then they have they do have a wide row here, it's just they do have armor, and so Lacerate's not going to be all that effective. But that may or may not be a card that we're looking to play in this round. We'll play it by ear a little bit. I think we're still looking to go range row, because this Cahir is huge. So if they are going to Yrden, they're definitely still going to Yrden that row. You have armor. We might hit Cahir. So he's not quite as huge. So we could have potentially even used a leader ability charge on this Quartermaster if we really wanted to. But okay, that's what we were looking for. We wanted to force them to committing to Yrden. So it definitely means they're going to win this round, but just was very concerned about them having Yrden and us not having Yrden. So that's why, even though it required that we commit some really big things with Ffion plus Cahir, we still have our leader ability, which could be helpful. We're probably going to, we're not going to play Lacerate here. We're probably going to mulligan this in round 3, because it's going to be a very short round 3. It's going to come down to primarily point slams. And we're going to see. We're going to see who has the better set here for the final round. Okay, so we drew to some big cards here. Experimental Remedy can give us a Quartermaster. There are still 2 in their graveyard, so even if they use a Freya's Blessing to play one of them, we can still get the other. And that might even deny them if they have 2 Freya's Blessings. Oh, no, they've already played one. Yeah, it's not like we're going to prevent them from getting their ideal target for another Freya's Blessing. Standard Bear, if they have a lot of boosted units, is huge, which in a short round, again, might not be ideal, but could still work. Igni is our best form of removal, assuming they get up to 20 points in a row. Lacerate, I think, the round is too short. Roderick could give us either Eyck or Quen into Lambert, or just Lambert directly. I think we can live with that. That looks good to me. So yeah, this is really the biggest question mark. Assuming they do get one of those Quartermasters down and create a bunch of boosted Witcher students, it wouldn't be bad. As a finisher, it's almost certainly going to be the last card we play, or, you know, Geralt Igni or Roderick into a Geralt of some variety. This is definitely first. Okay, so yes, more Witcher Quartermasters. Not currently any targets for it, though. So this is actually really interesting. Do we use a leader ability here? Not going to get a ton of boosts on it, because there are no additional units in this row, but it denies them the ability to use that order. However, to a certain extent, we kind of want them to use that order, because it powers up the Standard Bearer. It makes it so that they're in Igni range, in all likelihood. I think we probably still use it, though. I think we probably still use it. I think it is still preferable to do that, and then we go Experimental Remedy and steal another Quartermaster. We know they don't have the Yrden anymore, but we probably should still split across different rows here. And we're going to use these order abilities right off the bat to make sure that they don't do what we just did to them. Sucrus. Okay, so is it going to... Sucrus with Surner Chat? Is that the plan? Huh. So, nothing's big enough for an Igni right now. Standard Bearer, the longer we wait, the better it is. At this point, it's not exactly a big play, so Would like to save that. That would tend to mean it would be Roderick time. However, Roderick into Quen would then give us Lambert Swordmaster, which, I mean, is a lot of units, so, and they're all Witchers. It's a decent point slam, but the Lambert deployability is obviously not great. Eyck doesn't have anything to remove immediately, but presumably will at some point. So it's an option. The interesting thing is we could have potentially put Roderick there if we waited a turn and deny them Earn a Chad plus Sucrus, but I think we still go for it. And we don't try to spoil that. We go Quen. And we go Lambert, and it really doesn't matter who we hit here. I guess we hit you because you don't have the armor. So it's mostly just a point slam. I mean, it's 16 points on our side, 2 points of damage on their side. So it still adds up to a decent amount. Oh, selective mutation. Ah, this is to get Earn a Chad. Okay, they don't have him. I see. Okay. So now, I think we can just about guarantee this is Earn a Chad, but as their last card, that's not really going to be a huge play. So I think, especially because they are not in Igni range, this will be standard bear. It's a little bit better now than it was in our previous turn. Slightly better. It's still best in a longer round as a finisher when they have all those Witcher students on the board. And again, we made that choice of saying we should probably lock and seal this Quartermaster rather than letting them use it to make it for a more effective standard bearer. And they may have just rage quit here because we still have one very good card, one decent card, and their final combo, that Earn a Chad, is almost meaningless if it is their final play. Not to mention we would have removed it with Igni, and yes, it does appear as though they have rage quit, so we'll take the win. Alright, so going up against Skellige here, and we'll go first. Okay, so we have Cahir to benefit from all their boosting, although he's going to become an obvious target unless we have our defender to help protect him, which at the moment we do not, unless we happen to get him through Roderick, but that's not a guarantee. Other than that, we do have some 4 provision cost cards here, most notably the Hunter, which we may not be looking to play, and then also Experimental Remedy can be great, but mostly in round 2 or round 3 when they actually are more likely to have those Bear Witcher Quartermasters in their graveyard. So I think we dump both of them. Okay, there is our defender. That's nice. And Nauzicaa Sergeant, I mean, can be, actually may even be what we start off with here. Yeah, I suppose we can work with that. So let's begin there, but we might want to think about Defender plus Cahir. Is that something we save for round 3? Or we go and be really aggressive in round 1 and play it right off the bat? I think we probably wait to see when we want to play this. I mean, we want to play it early, of course, whenever we play it, but I think we save it for round 3, barring some unexpected stuffs. So we'll start with you. So, of course, this will generate value over time since many of our cards have deployabilities. So this will get a lot of boosts. Okay, it's a Drakkar, which is likely to be the target of future Quartermasters, probably starting on their next turn. So I think that means we'll be playing a Duchess's Informant on our next turn, but not quite yet. And so it could also be the target of an Obsidian Mirror. So those will probably be 2 things we're looking to play soon, but we're not quite there yet. So we could go with Roderick and just see what we happen to get. If we do happen to get an option to choose between a bunch of Geralts, we don't have really any great targets, because sure, 9 power armor Drakkar for base Geralt works, but Igni not gonna work here. Yeah, we could put down a proactive Eyck, I suppose. Might go for that, especially because we have Geralt in hand, so we do have tall removal if needed. So yeah, we'll go this route, I suppose. Oh wow, yeah, that'll even force them to lock up Eyck. So that's interesting. That's a fairly big commitment, because that's a gold card right there. Artifact Compression, and makes it a little bit safer for things like Cahir or our defender, assuming that we use that to protect Cahir. But it does also delay us being able to go for what we really want to do, which is Duchess's Informants and Obsidian Mirror on Bear Witcher Quartermasters. So we're looking at Roderick then, and just hoping that we get a decent option here. Yeah, see, don't want Igni, because they're not going to have a row that's big enough for us to use this. If we were to Quen, we're definitely going to do that, but what do we get with it? It's too early for Quartermasters. Yeah, see, this is the trouble we find ourselves in here. Is just we need a few more things on the board for us to go off of. So, I mean, it's going to be Quen. I'm just not certain what this is. Yeah. It's gonna be a brick Igni, I think. Because I'd rather brick Igni than brick Yrden, I think. Okay, there's the Quartermaster. This is what we just really wanted them to play much earlier than they did. Because this is where basically our entire deck is built around countering this specific card. So let's go for a Duchess's Informant to create one of these. And then hit our shielded Quen. And then we probably just hit Eyck since it's not really doing anything anymore. And then on our next turn, we're going to use Obsidian Mirror on the Quartermaster once again to create even more Quartermasters. And this is going to take a whole lot of space. Well, let's do it. And, well, we could, we could wait to see if they get additional Quartermasters. Or we could get the Drakars in here as well and use those as our targets for it. I suppose that is an option. Although, not loving that as much. Do we wait? I think we probably need to go for it now. And then, ooh, okay, you don't have the armor on at the moment. So we might wait a turn for the armor to come back and then hit you to get one extra point out of it, or if we're really pressed for time, then we could, of course, hit this Quartermaster, which has the armor. But I think we'll wait, because we are not exactly pressed for time here. We have a huge lead, because, as I was saying, we very much were waiting for them to play a Quartermaster, and as soon as they did, we were able to put up tons of points really quickly, and would have had even more if we had opted to use this right off the bat. But they'll pass, giving us the round 1 win. The only cost there being that we did have to brick an Igni to do so. Okay, so we do have a throwaway card here. But we did also play one more card than they did in round 1, so we may choose to either dry pass or just keep this really brief and just throw away one of our weakest cards, which, of all the things in our hand, the Illusionist would be the weakest. But it is another way to potentially build around the Quartermaster that is currently in their graveyard. So that's not a bad option that we might opt to pursue here. Though I mean, unless if we went Ffion plus Cahir, that'd probably be the only other thing that we would be potentially looking to play in this round, because again, we're not yet at the adrenaline numbers that we would be looking for to set up our big Witchers. But either way, we'll go this route. And spawn you in, and we put up all the points right off the bat and use both of these charges. We have reason to think we're going to play further here, but if we were to play Ffion, then he would get some armor. I mean, he destroys original armor, but then the battle preparation would give him more armor that would make him a solid target for this damage. We'd only want to play Ffion if we are anticipating that we will follow up and use Cahir. Which is a little intriguing. I might actually go for that. It's pretty darn aggressive with the bleed, but it's kind of intriguing to me. Okay, armor up. Gives them some Witcher students. But if we do this now, takes the damage, then gets boosted. Then we give him a little bit of armor, which means we can hit him like that. And then here's going down next in the melee row. Now, the biggest counter to Cahir would be either a Dire Bear, which is possible, or... Ooh, Drakar. Okay, I mean, I was expecting this to be them trying to get a Quartermaster out as quickly as possible, but I suppose they're trying to get the Drakar down first. But either Dire Bear in the melee row to prevent any boost in the melee row, or Yrden, but they would prefer not to do that in round 2, I'm thinking. But we are playing very aggressively here. We are now at 4 cards in hand, so we could get all of our Witcher Trio out of our deck at this point, which would be kind of useful. And it would make it so that we could potentially justify even go with the Leo as a point slam if we're going all in on this round, but getting a little ahead of ourselves here. If they don't do anything to try to shut down Cahir, then of course he's going to continue to get boosted every time they play any unit, which is going to make it hard for them to pass us here. So we are in the lead, and we have still played one more card than them, but they would need to be on even cards with us at best going into round 3 here. If not, or they might even need to go a card down to catch up at this point. But, you know, are we potentially going to bleed out something big for them? Maybe. I think it might be worth getting the thinning and the point slam from the Witcher Trio at this point, because that way we're thinning them all out, so we aren't at risk of potentially having 2 or all 3 of them in hand simultaneously, which would brick them all. So let's go for it. And I think we'll go melee row. Because right now, Igni would actually be really effective on this melee row, but this is not going to change that. And if we put them in the range row, then they have a solid option for Igniting the range row as well. Okay, Sucrus plus Yrden is definitely what they're going for here. And the fact that we force them into playing Sucrus is actually huge, because now, what are they going to do? If we pass right now, are they going to play Yrden and not have any time to actually benefit from his ability? Possibly, and I'm not even sure if Yrden by himself is going to be sufficient here. So I think we just pass now. I don't know, unless we want to Imposter on Sucrus, and the reason why we are Imposter is because they have a bunch of doomed units with the Witcher students, so that would make Sucrus a little bit bigger on our side. So I mean, it's an option, but I think we might opt to pass here because I think have done what we set out to do. Force them to commit some big cards and make it difficult for them, because any units that they play, Cahir will match those boosts, but he won't match the damage if they're playing non-Witchers. Ciri, oh boy. Are they about to play 3 more turns? They haven't passed us yet. Dude, otherwise they seriously bricked that. This is what I expected them to do, was play a Quartermaster. They have lots of shielded units. You would think they'd go after the Drakkar, because that would boost them when they do that, although, of course, Cahir would match that boost, so maybe they don't bother. They still haven't caught us. Now they are going to be 2 cards down. We'll match the boosts. So that Vesemir Mentor does not help them much. Leader ability gets rid of our defender, so now they can target Cahir, and they have theoretically passed us now. But at what cost? They have to brick a card? And then they draw the card from Ciri. Okay, it means that they pass us in round 2, but oh my goodness, look at how much they had to commit. Okay, so now we have the benefit of having, double, triple laissez even? So we'll definitely finish with Yrden. We can also pick off whatever their biggest unit is in all likelihood with Geralt of Rivia. Assuming they get more of the Witcher students down there, then that's what Lambert Swordmaster is here for. We won't have as many Witchers on the board this time around, I don't think, so Leo might not be quite as effective. Assuming they play another Quartermaster, this is what the Duchess Informant is for. Red Haze and then Moorlehem Hunter, definitely on the weaker side of Obsidian Mirror. If they get more Quartermasters, that's what that's for too. That might be a little bit better than the Red Haze. I think we should swap you out still. And Lacerate, I mean, they don't have a ton of time to get units down because they're only on 5 cards, but could still be decent value. They've also used their leader ability, whereas we have not. Okay, so this is where we would have loved, of course, to have still had our Igni, although, based on how we see they only got 2 of their Witcher Trio members down there, that means they have their 3rd one in hand, so they bricked their hand. Okay. Alright then. So, doesn't work yet. Doesn't work yet. Bad value. Bad value. Doesn't work yet. Bad value. Bad value. Yeah, this is the problem with us having our entire deck built around countering the Quartermasters, is when they don't play a Quartermaster, things get a little bit iffier. So, I think we might, as we were saying, Lacerate at best is probably still not quite as good as we would have otherwise expected because it is a shorter round. They won't have as many units on the board. So I think we say, okay, you know, we weren't all that committed to maximizing the effect of the Lacerate. Okay, this is what we're looking for. It's a Drakkar, which likely means Quartermaster's coming next. They're going... Okay. Range row this time. I mean, we could create a copy of it with Duchess's Informants. That is something. Whereas before, it was just completely unusable. So we might be looking to go that route. Alternatively, I mean, we can destroy it with Geralt of Rivia, although it's probably a little bit overkill at this stage. So I think what we might do is go Duchess's Informant, and then this will be our target for future Quartermaster plays, assuming they do that soon, and we'll use the Obsidian Mirror to get a Quartermaster. And still, ideally we go pure Quartermaster, but again, unless we're committing Geralt of Rivia to remove this, which, honestly, given how we have Yrden, might not be a terrible idea, but I think we still prefer to prioritize base Geralt over Duchess's Informant. Okay, no, it's armor up, actually. Okay. So, also worth considering, what row are we expecting to Yrden? And it's probably this melee row as things currently stand, which means the card we remove, we'd like to have be in the row that we're not about to reset, so that still makes sense. For Geralt right now, we could use Obsidian Mirror on the Witcher students and the Drakkar, which is still not really the value we're looking for. Now, Lambert Swordmaster starts to look a little bit better. Hitting all these guys, I mean, we could wait and see if they have more of these Witcher students that they're about to play, in which case it would, of course, get better. So I think we might... Nah, let's go for Swordmaster. I don't know how much better it's realistically going to get. Not the best possible value for it, but it is something. Okay, it's Quen into what? Base Geralt. Okay. And so, still no Quartermasters yet, somewhat surprisingly. And, we're still, I think, looking at resetting this row here. These are all +2s, which actually means the damage from Lambert is not all that significant if we were going to reset that boost anyway. So that's 6, +4, 10. Oh, wait, no, +3, rather. 9, +3, 12. Resets on this row. +5, +5, 10, +5. Oh, 15. Okay, it's actually kind of close here. Makes it a little bit harder to gauge, but I think we might actually deliberately go for a triple Witcher student. Because they are all Witchers, so they will all get boosted. And that does mean that Leo will be stronger as well. So this is our last card. And it is Leo. And that's why I was trying to wait before we played Geralt of Rivia, because this is definitely the card we're going to want to remove with Geralt of Rivia. Although, that being said, well, I mean, even if we were to Yrden this row, then we would have nothing that it would be base Geralt-able. So that's not really what we want to do. So I think what we'll do here is... Well, we're going to want to use our lead ability as well. Probably like to do that on something in this row where there are more statuses. Leo is a Witcher, which means we would get the extra power from him. So I think we probably do that. And then we'll remove him. And then we will Yrden, which... Did we establish this is actually still bigger? We said this was 15 boosts, so that's +5, +5... Oops. +5, so yeah, +15 boosts in this row. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This row is actually still bigger. See Yrden. That row. And that's already obviously enough, and then we could finish with Leo if we really needed to, but we don't. So even without any Quartermasters for us to counter in this round, even without us using an effective Igni, because we unfortunately had to brick it, still win with a card to spare and nearly 20-point advantage. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here, and this could be a bit of a mirror match. And they'll go first. Okay, so we have Cahir, which is useful because he can absorb all the boosts that they may receive. And Standard Bearer is kind of similar, just more in a finisher's way rather than an engine kind of way. 2 Wolf School Trio members, so that means we definitely want to get rid of one of them. And, don't confuse this with the other Lambert. No, this is primarily for getting rid of a whole bunch of those Witcher students, which might not be all that common in this case, as we're going out against Nilfgaard rather than Skellige, which is mostly what Lambert is here for. So, I mean, we'll probably keep him because he's still good. Experimental Remedy, not in round 1, I don't think, and, well, that's a little unfortunate that we did get another one of the Wolf School Trio there, so not going to be looking to play them in round 1. Viper Wisher does not have anyone to target with its deploy ability, so that's definitely not the ideal setup for them. In terms of what we'd like to start off with here, we have Cahir. We'd love to play him with a defender, otherwise he's very vulnerable, especially when their leader ability allows them to immediately lock him. So, that's not great. We might, or we could go Duchess Informant into Viper Witcher, and Adrenaline 3 would not even be active, but we'd at least get the bleed. Again, this is mostly made to counter some of Skellige's best cards, but we could also go for Roderick and see if we happen to get our defender. Maybe we give that a shot. I think we settle for Eyck, though. They may choose to lock him, but I mean, if they use their leader ability to do that, then I think we accept that. We have cards that would potentially be more valuable anyway. Okay, Blizzard to destroy Eyck, okay. I assume that's probably what they used their stratagem to get, so, I mean, clever, they made it work. But in this case, we might just be looking to go into Duchess's Informants, into Viper Witcher, as we were saying. It's not amazing, but it works. And it means we're beating their Viper Witcher because we got the deploy ability to give bleed, whereas they didn't have anything to target when they played their Viper Witcher. Okay, now they're gonna do the same thing. I feel like this truly is a mirror match here, where both of us were just waiting to match up against Skellige. Neither of us have had that happen, and now we're both just looking at our cards going, well, what are we gonna do against each other? Because this is not necessarily what these decks are designed to do. So, I mean, Obsidian Mirror, we have 2, not 3 targets for it, so that's suboptimal for sure. Probably not looking to do that. Leo, definitely suboptimal. Standard Bearer, much earlier than we'd be liking to play that. Lacerate, they split across 2 rows, so that does basically nothing. Cahir, unprotected, does make me a little bit concerned. I mean, they have 2 Viper Witchers now. As I was saying, Skellige, with a bunch of Witcher students, is the ideal way to play Lambert Swordmaster, but I don't think that's really going to happen against Nilfgaard, so we might need to settle for this. I'm not sure it's going to get much better than having 2, maybe 3 of the same type of target. Wow. Committing Geralt to that. I mean, it's a 10-point body, which is obviously Geralt a bull, but I would have thought you could do much better than that, so it does surprise me a bit. Then, I mean, still, we find ourselves in an odd place where we are getting closer to potentially needing to play Cahir, and if we were to play him, we'd want to play him at the beginning of a round, not in the middle of a round. So that's, again, just another source of hesitancy, and now that there's 1 fewer boosted unit, that means Standard Bearer, I mean, obviously played Geralt, so that's boosted, so, I mean, still just getting 2 additional boosts, which is not great. We'd like to save you until as late as possible, so we might be looking at a suboptimal Obsidian Mirror here, just getting 2 additional Viper Witchers out of it. We might, I mean, if we're gonna brick something, which it looks like we kind of need to, or at least play something a little bit suboptimally here, then we'd probably prefer to make it that, rather than have that be one of our bigger cards, like a Leo, I mean, Lacerate, board damage. I'm not thrilled about that either. Okay, no pass here, because they have a 1-point advantage, but, I mean, sure, we'll just use the throwaway here, and now doesn't really matter which one we're going for. Anything will do, and what is our weakest card? Is it Standard Bearer, or is it Lacerate? I mean, Standard Bearer, at worst, is a 6. Very likely to be at least a little bit higher than that. So I think we probably go for Lacerate, because that could be as low as 2, or in this case, 4. Oh. Well, that was unexpected. Okay, fair enough. I mean, we can still play another card here. And, they might not have been expecting that either. That was kind of funny, though. I mean, we can still play another card and try passing around, too, so it's not a huge deal. But, now we will play Standard Bearer. And, they shouldn't have a second Knickers in deck. And this will be enough still for us to catch them, so... Not a huge problem, but, a little unexpected, nonetheless. Either way, we will still win round 1. Okay, so we draw into our defender, Ffion, and that's great, because that is the card we were waiting for in order to pair up with Cahir. And we definitely want to get rid of one of our Wolf School trios. We definitely would like to have only one member of the Wolf School trio in our hand right now. Thank you. And, I mean, outside of that, after having made that change, this hand looks really strong. Illusionist being our weakest card here, and again, this is another card that is designed to counter Skellige Witchers Quartermasters, and obviously they don't have any of those, so it might be something that we'll look to swap out going into round 3, but given how we played 2 more cards of them in round 1, I think we're just looking to pass here. Okay, and their throwaway is going to be another Viper Witcher. Okay, so we have a bunch of stuff that gains power or uses cards from our opponent's graveyard, those being the Illusionist and Experimental Remedy now, and Duchess's Informant, similar idea, just with a bronze card that's on the board, and again, the bronze cards are probably not super valuable, at least not compared to the Skellige cards that we were planning to use these cards against. I think we probably still prefer them to Red Haze, though. We'll definitely take base Geralt. Of all these, I mean, Illusionist does come with a body in addition to the one that we're spawning in here, so we might stick with this. I think we'll stick with this. So we're going to start off with Defender plus Cahir as early as possible, because that will mean we maximize the amount of boost that we get from that. That will be an obvious thing to do. Okay, I'm pretty sure they're about to do the same thing. I'm pretty sure they're about to do the same thing. We do have Yrden, which is one of the best counters against Cahir, because obviously he needs to be in the melee row. So there's no surprises there. We could also destroy Ffion with base Geralt, and then, or we actually don't even need to get rid of him if we Igni our way through. So we don't need to rush to any answers just yet. But it is going to be pretty funny. I'm almost certain we are about to do the same thing. A true mirror match, perhaps. Oh, no! Okay, not what I thought they were going to do. And in fact, that is very effective against defenders in particular, since we already have a status, so that means what? They'll go skip the Doom step, go straight into lock, then they'll have poison, then they'll have another poison, so in theory it takes them 3 turns to remove Ffion, unless they have additional sources of lock or poison, in which case they can expedite that process a bit. So that's a little tricky, to the point where we might even want to destroy Ffion and then lock Philippe with our leader ability. It would be pretty aggressive, but this could shut down our biggest combo, so I think that might be worth doing, especially because we still have several forms of removal here. So I think we go base Geralt, and then we do this. Was not going to be my plan to do that initially, but I suppose we'll take it. I mean, there's a chance they have Purification, but we'll have to see. Red Haze does not work when there's a defender there, and so they will forfeit. Alright, we'll take the win. So there's a look at a Nilfgaard counter meta deck for the new Trial of the Grasses seasonal event. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.